Perhaps you have heard of Kazakhstan. You may have seen the name on a map, in the news, or even in a joke. But how many times have you stopped to think about what kind of country it really is? It's not an obvious destination, not for tourism, nor for bar talk. Many people don't even know where it is. Some even confuse it with other Istans out there. But those who ignore this giant in the heart of Asia are missing out on one of the most fascinating and surreal countries on the planet. That's exactly why today Bello Mundo will take you inside this enigmatic country and reveal curiosities that will make you question everything you think you know about geography, history, and even the limits of human madness. Number 1. Location and geographical data. If you open a map and zoom in on Central Asia, you will see a gigantic territory squeezed between Russia, China, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and other countries with names that not everyone can pronounce at first. This place is Kazakhstan, a country so large that it ranks 9th in the world in terms of area, but one that many people would not even be able to point out on a globe. It covers more than 1 million square miles, making it the largest country in the world without direct access to the sea. It is larger than all of Western Europe combined. Even so, it does not have a single beach facing the ocean. And yet, it offers a wealth of diverse landscapes. It has mountains, desert, canyons, pine forests, and to top it all off, the bizarre Lake Balkhash, which is fresh on one side and salty on the other. The capital is Astana, a planned city that looks like an architect's model in the middle of the steppe. In winter, it is minus 30 degrees with wind that cuts through your face. In summer, it easily reaches 95 degrees Fahrenheit, with a dry heat that seems to rise from the asphalt. But the cultural weight of the country still lies in Almaty, the former capital, further south, nestled in the Tian Shan Mountains. And just to give you an idea of its vastness, the furthest point from any ocean on the planet is here. In the heart of Kazakhstan, you can walk for days without seeing anything but fields, roads, and sky. But the emptiness is deceiving. This land has seen it all: Silk Road caravans, forced exile, atomic bomb detonations, and rockets going into space. And to understand how this happened, we need to go back in time. Number 2. History. Long before it became a republic, Kazakhstan was already a land of dust, horses, and conquest. Scythian, Turkic, and other nomadic tribes passed through these steppes, leaving behind no pyramids or walls, but gold. In the 13th century, the Mongols arrived. They swept across the land with military force and left deep marks. When their empire divided, the so-called Kazakh Khanates emerged. Khanate was the name given to a type of kingdom led by a Khan, who was a kind of tribal chief, something between a king and a military commander. These leaders organized nomadic groups who lived on horseback, armed with bows and spears, and crossed the steppes in search of pasture, territory, and freedom. It was in this context that the Kazakh people gained their own identity, and that is precisely where the country's name comes from. Kazakh means wanderer or free spirit, and Stan means land of. In other words, land of those who do not like fences. But freedom there never lasted long. In the 19th century, Russia arrived with trade, then railroads, then the army. When the Soviet Union was born, Kazakhstan became a piece of Moscow. Forced collectivization, famine, labor camps, and mass displacement followed. The country became an ethnic melting pot, full of trauma. In the 50s, with the Virgin Lands campaign, the soil was used to plant wheat. It also became a military testing ground. It was there that Baikonur, the largest space base on the planet, was born, as well as the largest nuclear test site in history. We'll get there. Kazakhstan became independent in 1991, but the Soviet model remained alive. Nazarbayev stayed in power for 30 years, changed the name of the capital to honor himself, and only left when protests took to the streets in 2022. To this day, the political system remains concentrated. The facade has changed, but the script remains similar. And in the midst of all this, it is the people who continue to live their lives. Number 3. Population, religion, and language. Kazakhstan is home to more than 130 ethnic groups. That is no exaggeration. There are Russians, Ukrainians, Uzbeks, Tatars, Uyghurs, Germans, Koreans, and of course Kazakhs, who today represent about 70% of the population. But this diversity did not arise spontaneously. Many people were forcibly sent there during the Soviet era. When Stalin wanted to remove minority groups from Europe or punish ethnic groups considered threatening, Kazakhstan was where he sent them. This is how entire villages of Volga Germans appeared in the middle of the steppe, and Koreans ended up settling near the border with China. Even with this forced history, the country has managed to transform this mix into coexistence. In large cities, it is common to see people of different ethnicities sharing the same table, working in the same office, or forming families together. The official language is Kazakh, from the Turkic family, but Russian is also widely spoken, especially in urban areas. The government has announced the transition from the Cyrillic to the Latin alphabet by 2025 in an attempt to move closer to the West. But on the streets, bilingualism remains strong. In terms of religion, the country is also a mosaic. The majority are Sunni Muslims, but with mild practices. There is fasting, there are blessed marriages, but there is also vodka, barbecues, and loud music. In addition, there are Orthodox churches, synagogues, Buddhist temples, and even a pyramid in Astana, the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation, where religious leaders from around the world have gathered. Amidst all this, what still pulsates strongly is the nomadic spirit, but that deserves a separate chapter. Number 4. Traditions. If there is one thing that has survived the passage of time in Kazakhstan, it is the nomadic spirit. Even with skyscrapers in Astana and Wi-Fi in the desert, many people still carry on ancient customs as part of their daily lives. And it all starts with the yurt. The yurt is a round tent made of wood and felt, used for centuries by shepherds and travelers. Today, it is no longer a permanent home, but it is still present at celebrations, camps, public festivals, and even as a tourist restaurant. Inside, everything follows the standard pattern: carpet on the floor, a cauldron in the center, and decorations with tribal symbols. It is a portable, practical architecture steeped in history. One of the moments when the yurt takes center stage is during Nowruz, the Kazakh New Year. Celebrated on March 21st, it marks the arrival of spring and the rebirth of nature. Families gather, set up tents, serve traditional dishes, and play traditional music. The relationship with horses also remains strong. Children learn to ride at an early age, and their first solo ride is cause for celebration. In addition, the country still preserves sports such as Kokpar. Number 5. Kokpar and Steppe sports. If there is one spectacle that leaves every visitor to Kazakhstan speechless, it is Kokpar, a traditional sport played on horseback where two teams compete for control of a goat. That's right, a headless goat weighing up to 40 kilos, which must be grabbed from the ground, carried at full gallop, and thrown into a target. All this in an open field, with no lines, no referee with a whistle, just riders, strength, and shouting. It's brutal, it's chaotic, and for them it's art. The players train from an early age, The horses are prepared to withstand the strain and speed, and the crowd cheers as if it were a championship final. On tournament days, you can see crowds gathering around makeshift fields in the middle of the steppe. There is music, food, dancing, and that atmosphere of national pride in the air. Kokpar is more than a game. It is a symbol of resistance, traditional masculinity, and nomadic heritage. And even with attempts to standardize the rules, it remains a deeply cultural event. In some regions, it is still played in the oldest form possible. No uniforms, no scoreboards, just tradition guiding the game. For those who grew up on horseback, none of this is exotic. It's just part of life. And it's only the beginning, because the rituals here go far beyond the field. Number 6. Eagle Hunters. Another tradition that does not go unnoticed is hunting with golden eagles. The hunters, called berkuchi, train these birds for years. They are passed down from generation to generation and become practically part of the family. The bond between the hunter and the bird is built over years with respect and precision. In some villages, these eagles sleep next to their owners, travel on horseback, and participate in rites of passage. During autumn festivals, these demonstrations become a spectacle, but what is a show for tourists is still part of the culture for them. The clothes worn by the berkuchi are handmade from leather and traditional embroidery, and the eagles, even though they are imposing, return to their owner's arms as if they were part of the family. Number 7. Places. You can leave a desert as dry as a rock and, a few hours later, be at the foot of a snow-capped mountain, all within the same territory. The diversity of the landscape here looks like a video game script. In the southeast, almost on the border with China, lies Khan Tengri, a peak of almost 23,000 feet, pyramid-shaped and covered in eternal snow. It is the highest mountain entirely within the country's borders and one of the most beautiful in the Tian Shan mountain range. The surroundings are pure silence, ice, and thin air. Heading south is Almaty, the country's largest city. Modern, tree-lined, full of cafes and museums, it lives with snow-capped mountains on the horizon. From there, you can climb up to Meadow, the highest altitude skating rink on the planet. It is almost 6,000 feet high and is still used for training and leisure. To the east, the scenery changes completely. The Charan Canyon impresses with reddish rocks and walls up to 300 meters high. The most famous stretch is called the Valley of Castles because the formations look like towers sculpted by the wind. Further north, the climate changes again. The Burabo region resembles Scandinavian parks with turquoise lakes, pine trees, and rounded mountains. It is the favorite summer retreat for those who want to escape the heat of the steppe. And when it comes to water, there is a lake that looks like something out of a nature prank. Lake Balkhosh is one of the largest in Asia, covering more than 16,000 square kilometers. But what really catches the eye is not its size. It is the fact that it has two completely different halves. The western part is fresh water. The eastern part is salty. This is because of the Ili River, which flows into only one side and brings fresh water in abundance. The other side, without constant renewal, evaporates in the sun and becomes increasingly salty. The result is a lake with two personalities, separated by a natural phenomenon that confuses even experts. Number 8. Gastronomy. After meeting a people with more than 130 ethnic groups sharing the same territory, you can imagine that the food would not be simple. Kazakh cuisine blends nomadic tradition, Soviet traits, influences from Turkish neighbors, and Central Asian spices. It is a cuisine that tells stories. The basis still comes from nomadic life: meat, milk, and pasta. Everything that can be carried on a horse's back, preserved for days, and prepared in the middle of the steppe. The most symbolic dish is beshbarmak, which means 5 fingers, because it is eaten with the hands. It is a combination of cooked meat, usually horse or mutton, served on wide strips of dough with a hot broth poured over it. Welcoming someone with this dish is a sign of respect. And yes, you heard right, horse meat. Around here, horse meat is not taboo. It is an honor. It is reserved for special guests, weddings, and large parties. Barsak, fried dough balls that resemble unfilled donuts, appear on every table. They are fried on the spot and served with black tea, which is drunk all day long here. But there is one detail. If the cup is filled to the brim, it means that the host wants you to leave. The correct thing to do is to fill the cup only halfway, so that it can be refilled. It is the liquid etiquette of hospitality. The most emblematic drink is kumis, fermented mare's milk. It has a low alcohol content, a sour taste, and traditional status. There is also shubat, made from camel milk. And then there is quart, hard balls of salted and dried curd, which nomads carried in their luggage. And after eating, drinking, and toasting, we can get up from the table and visit the nuclear test site. Number 9. The nuclear test site. In the middle of the steppe, there is an area the size of Belgium where the ground bears invisible scars. It is the Semipalatinsk test site, also called the Polygon, a place where, between 1949 and 1989, 456 nuclear bombs were detonated. No other place on the planet has been hit by so many explosions. In theory, the region was practically uninhabited. In practice, there were 700,000 people living in the surrounding area. Children climbed hills to see the light in the sky. Many people thought it was some kind of spectacle. Only later did the diseases appear. Cancer, malformations, blood disorders. In some villages, almost every house lost someone. All this happened while army doctors collected data without ever giving an explanation. In the 1980s, the revolt began to gain voice. The Nevada Semipalatinsk movement emerged, uniting Kazakh intellectuals, scientists, and artists. The pressure worked. On August 29, 1991, President Nazarbayev officially closed the camp. The date became a global symbol, International Day Against Nuclear Tests, recognized by the UN. But the damage was already done. The exposure was chronic, silent, and cumulative. A poison that passed from the wind to the soil, and from the soil to the people. Even with patrols and studies, the effects continue. There are those who never left, and there are those who still live in fear. Number 10. Space Base. After talking about a place where the ground shook with nuclear explosions, we now end our tour of Kazakhstan by talking about a place where the sky shook with rocket launches. In the middle of the steppe lies Baikonur, the largest and oldest space launch base in the world. It was from there that, in 1961, Yuri Gagarin departed for Earth's orbit, becoming the first human in space. And yes, this milestone in history took place within Kazakh territory. The base was built in the 50s, at the height of the Cold War. Its exact location was a state secret. The Soviet Union said that Baikonur was elsewhere, just to throw spies off the scent. But the real cosmodrome appeared in the middle of the steppe, surrounded by miles of nothingness, a perfect place to launch rockets without an audience. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan inherited the land. But since the Russians did not want to give up the base, they made a deal. They leased Baikonur for 99 years. Today, the Russian space agency, Roscosmos, still operates from there and pays a hefty sum for the privilege. The land is Kazakh, but Moscow is in charge. The neighboring city is also called Baikonur, and it lives in a world apart. Russian signs, Russian currency, military control. It's practically an enclave within the country. To visit, you need special permission. The most curious thing is that, even with all the current technology, the rockets still follow the design from the 60s. The Soyuz spacecraft continues to take astronauts into space from a place where time seems frozen. And that's it for today. So, did you already know all this? Tell us in the comments what surprised you the most. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell, because on the next destination, Bello Mundo will take you to another amazing corner of the planet. See you there.